Mm-hmm.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Property Panel Podcast, where we dive deep into the real estate industry, from buying your first home to interesting investments.
Yep.
The most important strategy is what we're going to be going over, and that's going to be the negotiation factor. But we want to give a big thanks to everyone for tuning in. This is our 1-year anniversary.
Woo!
Going crazy.
Yeah, we made it.
Guys. Yeah, it's been an awesome year. This is week 52 that we've been doing this, so we're pretty excited to come to you for another year. We're excited for 2025. As you've heard in recent episodes, we are going to be moving on, doing some different things that are going to be interesting, so we hope you tune in for those. I think we're going to kick it off next week. New year, new us, new podcast kind of deal, so continue supporting, and we thank you guys.
Yeah, we got a new PC that we're gonna get set up. Streaming PC. We're gonna do a lot more different kind of episodes, as we mentioned. Get some more guests on that I think you guys will like. But a lot of good stuff in store for 2025.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thank you guys for tuning in, for subscribing. It's been a journey, and we're gonna keep going and keep improving. But yeah. It's exciting.
Mm-hmm. You want to give a thanks to our sponsors that have been holding it down for us for the better part of the year now.
Big shout out to Collier Title Company. If you need deed prep, title work, closings, and more, they're located in Brandenburg, E-Town, and Louisville. You can call them at 270-763-6589. And for this week's sponsor, We Buy Houses, we offer cash and close in as little as 2 weeks. You can give us a call at 270-945-5416 or 270-945-7189.
Thank you for that, Josh, and thank you to our sponsors. And if you or anyone you know would like to be a sponsor, we have a monthly at $100, or actually weekly at $100, monthly at $300, and then yearly at $3,000. You're advertising our intros, outros, as well as our intermissions on all social media platforms. And basically, wherever you want to find your podcast is where you can find us. To search Property Panel Podcast. And while you're here watching this video, go ahead, give us a like, share, and subscribe, because it costs you nothing to be a good person.
Yeah, and go check us out on TikTok. We're doing a giveaway once we hit 100 followers.
Yes.
We're going to be giving away Property Panel Podcast merch as well as Cedar Hill Properties merch. So go check us out on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, and I think that's it.
Yeah, and we hope you had a Merry Christmas if we hadn't said so already. And again, thank you for
and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, and a full.
Hey, and a good way to end it out. Me and Jalen are closing on a house.
Yeah,
he's buyer side, I'm seller side. So
one of the last possible days to close in 2024.
Yep.
So we're making it out with a bang, and we got a strong start into 2025, as we had discussed a few months ago. You want to go ahead and start getting on the train for that process. So we've definitely been, keeping our positive thinking going and staying on the right track. And here we are, still bringing you the latest and greatest while still doing a really good job in real estate as well.
Yeah, and today we're going to be talking about negotiation tactics. When you're trying to buy, even on the seller side, just, trying to get the best price for not only your buyer but your seller. And I think on the back half, we're probably going to just kind of overlook this past year, at least on our TikTok. And, I guess we'll dive into it. Jalen, how do you negotiate a deal?
Well, we're going to actually cover, that's a great question. We're going to actually cover a variety of negotiation strategies, from key psychological tactics and practical tips that you can use, not to just get the deal you want, but to get it done with confidence and skill. By the end of this episode, you'll actually have actionable insights to walk you through your next real estate transaction and come out on top. And we're not actually going to be going over just winning strategies. We're also going to be able to tell you when's a good time to walk away as well.
Yeah, you never want to get stuck in a deal that just doesn't make sense. Even if it's something that you want, you got to be careful not to screw your client, or your client not to screw themselves. And so that's where we kind of step in and help you along that path. And part of that goes to just what's the home worth ultimately. But I always tell people, if you really love the house, if you plan on staying there for a lifetime, sometimes it is a little bit more worth to kind of accept an offer that you maybe not normally would, but I would advise my client, hey, this is higher than I think it's worth, but if this is where you want to live for the rest of your life,
it's worth it.
It's worth it because, like we discussed in almost every episode, prices, continue to go up, even in, market crashes. At most they'll stabilize, but it's a stair step. It's always going up. Interest rates are always going up and down, and I think right now is a great interest rate. Not a lot of people. Yeah, great time to buy, and you know what, the market's been stepping up, quite a bit recently. Definitely a good time to sell. I listed a pretty good size listing, and it went in a week, which I don't think would have happened, a month ago.
Right.
But yeah, it's looking good right now in the market, whether you're buying or selling. But anyway, I guess we'll kind of dive into this, and I think the first step is you got to understand the motivations and understand the motivate. If you're a buyer agent, you need to understand the motivations of the seller as well as your buyer, to kind of just gauge, where it's going. If the seller's not motivated to sell and is just kind of seeing what happens, they're probably going to be more, strict to their price. Whereas if a seller has to move in the next month or so,
which we see, often around here, especially with having military members in Fort Knox and stuff, they might have to get stationed somewhere else and, no time, and they not even really realize it. So,
I mean, I have a military client right now, and they're stationed, so they really have to kind of get a move on with the selling process. But understanding motivations, I think, is kind of a key factor. One of the first things that you should consider when you're writing an offer. What are the buyer's needs? What are the seller's needs? How quickly do they need to move? All those kind of things you want to factor into to the process.
If you can do a quick closing, and that's obviously people want their money fast, but there is certain times where it might be more appealing if they could take post-possession or something to that extent. So if you could work something out, in that negotiation factor that work for both
early
parties.
possession.
Yeah, early possession as well. And then I think one of the most important negotiation processes, obviously we just spoke of, but one that comes kind of hand in hand with that one is the power of anchoring. Your first offer out there, or after you already assess the situation and you know what offer you're wanting to put out, I think it's the most important part, because that first offer sets the tone for the rest of the conversation, and that's what we kind of call anchoring. For example, if you're buying a home, starting with a reasonable but lower offer can anchor the seller's expectations rather than, you offering, right up there at market value, which you tend to still do in today's market. But like you said, we always kind of I like doing the anchoring. I tell people, they're like, "Oh, I want this house. Let's offer full price." I'm like, "Well, let's offer at least 10,000 less or something first. Just see if there's any wiggle room." And you're asking closing costs, so we're already going to be asking them to come off that full price. So I think that first offer is important, and you don't want to go too low to potentially piss off the sellers, but at the same time, you don't want to go too high to where you left some money on the table for yourself as well.
Yeah. That first offer is really important, and coming in a little low, no matter what, can save your buyer money. And might as well do that, because we're trying to look out for the best interests of our buyer at the end of the day. And, I
actually, sorry to cut you off, I have an example of this. Like, we had this property that we're actually under contract, supposed to close next week. It was listed at 160, and I thought a good sell price on it would have been about 130s. I thought that was about what it was going to go for, and I'm pretty accurate at that. But I was like, hey, let's start off, a little lower. I was thinking 120s, so we could have some room to come back. They want to start off at 115. They accepted like that, and we was like, oh, they thought maybe they left money on the table. I was like, well, you shot a really low ball offer and you got lucky it got accepted. I thought it potentially could piss them off, but sometimes you got to take that leap. Obviously, I was able to run comps on the property. I knew that it was valued a little more than what it would go at market value, especially for an investor. So I wanted them to start lower, and I also had other investors in mind. So it could kind of, like you said, start that anchoring that we just talked about, that groundwork for everyone to come to set their expectations.
Right, and you also have to judge your situation. So if there's a house that has, you ask the selling agent, hey, how many offers you have? They got 6 offers on the table. I would inform my buyer that, hey, this is probably going to go at or close to list price, maybe even over. But just consider that, we can offer what you'd like. But, with 6, depending on how it's priced, if it's, ridiculously overpriced, then obviously not. But, that's just, one of the factors you got to consider with that first offer. If you got 6 offers on the table, more than likely it's going to go for asking. So just keep that in mind, on the buyer's side as a buyer yourself, or if you're an agent, kind of look out for that. And that's why it's important to communicate with the listing agent. Ask if there's anything else they can tell you about the property. Ask how many offers, if they have offers, and that kind of goes into the negotiation process. If there's no offers on the table, no showings have happened, that's a little bit more reasoning to me to come in a little lower,
right?
Because they got nothing else. So.
And another thing that people, I think, don't think about that's a negotiating factor is emotions. People are driven and controlled by their emotions, and they can really cloud your judgment as well. So if you can just stay calm and composed, it's very key in negotiating a good deal for yourself. Whereas if you act desperate and come to the table like, hey, I need this house, it also shows like, hey, I think we can get them for a little more kind of deal. So,
Right.
you know, but on the other hand, if you have too much confidence, it might make some people a little wary. So that's why I try to keep things very professional, even through text. You know, I keep it simple and sweet. I don't get too much emotions involved. I'm strictly business.
Yeah, I mean, I've had several clients that maybe a deal fell through for something or another, and I've had a few of them get really upset about it because they just needed to move or whatever the situation is, and just keeping them calm, letting them know these things do happen. It's not common, but it's worth trying again. Instead of just completely getting scared away from it. So you got to kind of keep their emotions level, your buyer's emotions level. In certain circumstances, because I've had buyers call me crying, literally, and I feel for them because they got a family and they might need this home, but I let them know there's always going to be something else that can pop up, and I always tell people everything happens for a reason. If a deal fell through, then that just means maybe that the better home's coming next month, and that actually happened a month or two ago to me. Had a buyer whose the house fell through, and she was upset, and I calmed her down. I was like, everything happens for a reason. There's going to be something better come along, and sure enough, they got a bigger house at a better price point, and it all worked out in the end, and she was super happy with it. But yeah, emotions definitely come into factor when we're offering on both sides. And then being ready to counter offer. So, one thing I tell my sellers is, hey, we might list for this price, but someone's might come in a little lower. We got to think about our counter offers. And one of the ways I do that is I ask them, what's your bottom dollar? I just want to know. That way, that factors into the negotiation too, because, you can have closing costs, you can have extra fees, and that might dip below where they need to be. So understanding beforehand what the max of your buyer is and what the low of your seller is, that way you can kind of go from there. With your counter offer and just kind of being ready for it.
Right. And a thing to, obviously with that counter offer, you'll be getting into that. And that's why your buyer, you want to have, strong strategies for your buyer too. And you want them to be, not just pre-qualified, but pre-approved too. Because in today's markets, pre-approval letter shows basically that they're good for the money. We have people calling all the time that were like, hey, I want to buy this house today. I'm like, yeah, I wish it was that simple. Let's call this lender, and it scares them off because they might not have the best credit or something. There's a lot of things that you can negotiate, and especially like you said in those counter offer, you might have some contingencies or something, like maybe you want a lawnmower to stay or your seller credits, and people are like, just offer them more money, but you also have to realize that the house has to appraise out too. So there could be another negotiation process if the appraisal comes in short. So you really have to have a good agent, even as a buyer, to run comps on these houses to make sure that you're not offering over market value for these properties and get yourself ahead of what you could possibly afford or what they might possibly allow.
Right. Yeah. That pre-qualification isn't as stringent as the pre-approval. Pre-approval is a little bit more official, and that's typically the first step I tell my buyers is, hey, go ahead and get pre-approved. And, it's good for a buyer to reach out to an agent to find what lenders they need to call, because, some lenders do KHC, some don't. Some can do USDA, some can do VA. So you got to find, the right lender for the right person. And, that's where the agent comes in and kind of directs you to some options that will fit what they're doing. Because, there's some lenders that only do conventional. So you gotta kind of narrow that down for your buyer, get that approval. And, that's a really strong way to start an offer because most agents are going to ask for that if you submit.
And then also, to your point, after you get those offers negotiated, sometimes you'll run into repairs or the conditions of properties, which you can negotiate, money in lieu of that in the offer originally if you want, or if you're savvy about it, you could potentially understand that that's going to be something that might come up on a home inspection. And that could be another way to get some money in lieu of repairs instead of having the sellers to make repairs to get the deal to move on, more swiftly. Which obviously appraisal requested repairs are different than buyer requested repairs. As the buyer requested repairs come from the home inspection, as the appraisal repairs are contingent on the contract and the value of the home.
Yeah. The appraiser repairs need to be done, or the loan's not going to go through. So those are definitely going to be something that the sellers have to address. Whereas the repair request from the inspection, that's negotiable, which is another negotiation portion, like you said. But yeah, and I think another thing too is like you don't want to overplay your hand. You don't want to like show them all your cards. And
Yep.
what I mean by that, at least an example, if you're on the buyer's side, let's say the house is listed for 200, your buyer's approved up to 220. I get a whatever our offer is what the pre-approval letter says. That way they don't see, oh, these people are good for 220. Let's go ahead and counter full price.
And then also, like, even the seller, like, when it comes to repairs, they might try and be a little more strong or even maybe on countering, and they might overplay their hand and might alienate the deal over a few minor concessions because, in the grand scheme of things, do you want to lose, $50,000 over $1,000,
Right.
And a lot of people get bent out of shape when they get these major repair requests. Well, how much is it really going to cost these repairs to be done? Come on, let's go.
Yeah. And
Let's
then
get
on
this
top
deal
of
wrapped
that,
up.
if you deny those repairs and that throws the deal, then the seller's probably dealing with an additional 60 days before they close, which is going to cost them, 2 more mortgage payments and bills and all that stuff. So in the end, those $1,000 of repairs was worth it because it was actually less than what they spent on just owning the home. So that, overplaying your hand is a big part of it.
And you see it often.
Yeah, you see it often. Funny enough, I think this comes into play in like different aspects of stuff. Like,
yeah.
I mean, poker, I guess.
Yeah.
You don't want to overplay your hand. You don't want to, go all in when you have a terrible hand.
Right.
So keep that in mind when you're putting in an offer.
And don't ignore market conditions either. So I know we talk about, seasonal listings and stuff like that. It's in different seasons, it's easier to, navigate the market as a seller and a buyer. So don't ignore those whenever you're purchasing a particular property. Understand what it's going to be like in the timeline that you're going to resell, and understand what the market can do and will do, and have you a good agent on your side to be able to predict that market. And then also know when to compromise. Like you said, it kind of goes in hand with not overplaying your hand, but know when to fold them too. You got to know, hey, this is a good deal, and it kind of, goes hand in hand with each other. You don't want to lose out on a lot for a little bit. So be smarter and work harder.
Yeah, and it all depends. It's all variable. Like if your client has a bigger budget and a more open, let's say they're less strict on what they want, you don't want to go, know when to compromise. Like you said, like, let's back out of this deal because there's about 10 other houses like it on the market. We don't want to go over what we should pay. So, reading the market and knowing when to compromise, I think, is another big tactic.
You got any other tactics
in
that we
negotiation?
Can think of, or are we just tacticaled out?
I don't know. Our tactical equipment. First-hand experience.
We're out of smokes.
Yeah,
we're out of tacticals.
Yeah, we're out of
tacticals. we got some more insider information. If you are curious, you can hit us up on one of the numbers he provided, because we'd love to get you in touch with the preferred lenders. And we feel like we set a good base for especially new buyers, and even to seasoned investors alike. We put in the same work ethic, whether we're going to have multiple deals from you, or this is your first deal. We're going to treat you like you want to be treated, and we're going to work the deal how we would want if it was our house that we were buying. And I think that's I know emotion's not something to put in there, but that's the kind of emotional attachment I put into it, is that I want these guys to be satisfied as I would if I was moving into it. So
yeah, I mean, I treat every client like they're the same, whether they're buying a $500,000 house or a $50,000 house. You got to understand that at the end of the day, it's a human, it's a family, and they
Thank
need.
you for that follow.
Shout out. Who is it?
Justin E. Clarkson. Thank you.
Thank you,
Followed
Justin
6
Clarkson.
days ago. It just now loaded. Thank you.
Just now loaded. We just hooked up. But yeah, I think that kind of covers negotiation tactics. Like you said, reach out to us if you have any more questions, or if you need any suggestions on lenders. But yeah, I think maybe we should see if we can dive into some of our older videos or TikToks, and just check out this past year a little bit.
I don't have TikTok pulled up.
That's okay.
We'll do it next week.
Tune in next week.
Yeah, to see our
for the yearly
official year.
We'll do a year review.
Let's go ahead and do this. Woo! It's been a full year on the Property Panel Podcast. We're going to be bringing you back. Oh yeah, let's get the lights going. Oh yeah,
get
the lights going.
Woo!
Oh yeah,
it's the holiday season. It's the new year.
It is, and yeah, we're actually next week we're gonna kind of do a little mix. We're gonna be going over old episodes, and we're gonna actually be bringing a game into the mix. So we don't know if it'll be with food or what it'll be with next week, but we're gonna play a little old video, maybe guess the video or something, or guess the week, something like that.
Guess the topic or something.
Or guess the topic. We're gonna figure it out as we go. We got some better ones in store, obviously, but next week's gonna be kind of our trial run. We're gonna see what we can make up. So,
Yep.
we appreciate you guys for tuning in for 52 weeks now. Of course, go give us a follow on TikTok to get in part of that giveaway. Our first 100 followers, we'll be getting free Property Panel Podcast merch as well as some Teeter Hill swag. So, go help us out.
Yeah. And I want to shout out our title sponsor for this episode. Thank you to Collier Title Company. If you need deed prep, title work, closings, and more, they're located in Brandenburg, E-Town, and Louisville. You can call them at 270-763-6589. And for this week's sponsor, We Buy Houses, we offer cash and close in as little as 2 weeks. You can give us a call at 270-945-5416 or 270-945-7189. Thank you, guys.